A heavy silence filled the hold of the human shuttle. Commander Verl sat between two of his officers, their wrists bound loosely with simple plastic straps. They were not uncomfortable, but the meaning was clear. They were prisoners. Outside the small viewport, the wounded shape of the infinite clarity grew smaller, a silent, silver ghost against the stars. It was not empty. A skeleton crew of his people remained, enough to keep the life support on and follow orders. The orders had come from Captain Minsu. They were to wait. A human engineering team was already on board, not to loot, but to perform what Minsu called essential repairs. They were fixing the hull breach, restoring minimal power to the drives, just enough to make the ship capable of a slow, long journey home. The main weapons and the data core were gone, physically removed by the humans. The infinite clarity was being turned into a messenger, stripped of its teeth and its secrets, left only with a voice. The shuttle docked back with the unyielding spirit with a soft thump. Verl and his officers were led, not back to the holding room, but to the ship's main airlock. Captain Minsu was there, waiting with Security Chief Su Mi. The humans had a large sealed container with them. "Your journey home will be long, Commander," Minsu said. His voice was no longer cold, but it held a finality that was even more frightening. "Your ship will have enough power to reach the edge of our system and send a distress call to your people. We have removed your weapons and your primary databanks. You will not be followed." Verl found his voice, thin and cracked. "And my crew, who remain? They will be unharmed as long as they cooperate with my engineers. They will be released with you. You have my word." Verl wanted to doubt it, but he looked at Minsu's face and knew the human was telling the truth. It was not mercy. It was part of the plan. "You are sending us back," Verl stated. "We are," Minsu said. "But you are not returning empty-handed." He gestured to the container. Su Mi entered a code, and the lid hissed open. Inside, resting on a padded frame, was a dark gray cube. It was made of solid, nondescript human alloy. There was only one feature on it, a standard galactic data port. "This is a gift for the Concordance," Minsu said. "A history lesson." Verl felt a chill. He remembered the images in the holding room. The spears, the trenches, the mushroom cloud. The record of your wars. "More than a record," Minsu corrected him gently. "It is a translation. We have taken our history, from the first time one tribe clashed with another over a watering hole, to the last great conflict that nearly burned our world to ash. We have translated it into your languages, formatted it for your systems. It is uncompressed, unedited. The victories, the atrocities, the numbers, the names. It is all there." He stepped closer, his eyes locking onto Vorl's. "You will deliver this. You will tell them what happened here. You will tell them you scanned our warship. You saw its crude parts and thought you understood. And then you will tell them to play this. They need to understand not what we are, but why we are this way." Su Mi closed the container and handed a data chip to Verl. "This is the flight path out of our system. Your ship's navigation is already programmed. Follow it exactly. Do not deviate." The airlock's outer door opened, revealing the tunnel back to the crippled infinite clarity. The message was clear. It was time to go. Vo-RL, his pride completely gone, his body aching, took the data chip. He and his officers were nudged gently toward the tunnel. He paused at the threshold and looked back at Minsu, the human captain standing straight and unyielding in the harsh light of the airlock. "You are letting us go," Verl said, not as a question, but as a final attempt to understand. Minsu gave a single slow nod. "We are not conquerors, Verl. We just want to be left alone. But if your Concordance decides that what happened here was an act of war, and if they decide to come in force, He paused, and for the first time, Verl saw something flash in the human's eyes. It was not anger. It was something older, deeper, and infinitely more weary. It was the look of someone who has walked through hell and knows the path all too well. Then they will learn what war really is. The kind of war we have spent 10,000 years perfecting. The kind that leaves nothing behind. Tell them that. Verl turned and walked into the tunnel. He did not look back again. The next hours were a blur of quiet activity. The human engineers, efficient and silent, finished their work and departed. The remaining Concordance crew, scared but unhurt, gathered on the bridge of the infinite clarity. The main screen was dead, but a single navigation console glowed, showing the course the humans had laid in. A course leading away from Earth, away from Saturn, out towards the lonely dark. Verl stood at the broken command rail. He gave the order. The engines, patched and weak, came online. The silver ship began to move, turning slowly away from the gray, angular shape of the unyielding spirit. As they pulled away, Verl saw the human ship did not move. It did not track them with weapons. It simply watched them go, a silent sentinel against the stars, until it was just a speck, and then nothing at all. The journey to the edge of the system took days. The mood on the ship was one of shock and silence. No one spoke of what had happened. They couldn't. The reality was too large. Finally, the navigation console chimed. They had reached the coordinates. They were now beyond the orbit of the last distant, icy planet. They were alone. Open a channel, Verl said, his voice rough from disuse. Broadcast the standard Concordance distress beacon. Include our location and condition. As the officer worked, Alix approached him. She was holding the human data cube in its container. What do we do with this, Commander? Verl looked at the dull, gray cube. It looked so small, so harmless. He knew it was the most dangerous object in the galaxy. We do as he said, Verl whispered. We deliver it. The distress call went out, streaming into the void at the speed of light. It would take time to reach the Concordance. Time for Verl to think. He retired to his damaged quarters and opened the small data chip the humans had given him, the one with just the history files. He plugged it into a portable viewer. He started to watch. Not the edited highlights, but the raw, chronological files. He saw the cave paintings of stick-figure battles. He read the clay tablet accounts of ancient kings boasting of leveled cities. He watched the reenactments of phalanxes clashing, of castles burning. The numbers, at first small, began to grow. Thousands, tens of thousands, then millions. The weapons evolved from swords to guns to bombs that could destroy a city in a single flash. He watched, and his soul grew cold. He saw not just violence, but an endurance for it, a capacity for sacrifice and horror that his peaceful, harmonious culture had never dreamed of. He saw that the humans had not just fought wars. They had studied them, refined them, turned them into a science of annihilation. And then, at their absolute peak of self-destruction, they had stopped. They had looked into the abyss they had created and stepped back, not because they became weak, but because they finally, truly understood the cost. The unyielding spirit was not a ship of mindless violence. It was a ship built by survivors of that abyss. It was a promise carved in steel. We will not go back there. But if you push us, we will take you with us. A week later, a Concordance medical and recovery ship found them, drifting and powerless. They were brought on board, treated for their injuries, asked for their reports. When Verl stood before the Concordance Inquiry Council, his body was healed, but his eyes were old. He told them everything. The scan, the arrogant demand, the human's refusal, the first shot, and then the response, the sacrificial armor, the kinetic projectiles, the tactical cloud, the precise, disabling strikes. He finished his report in a dead quiet room. Then he placed the human data cube on the table before the council. Captain Minsu of the human ship Unyielding Spirit told me to give you this, Verl said. His voice clear now, filled with the weight of his new understanding. He said you needed to understand why they are the way they are. He said to tell you. Verl took a deep breath, remembering the human captain's final weary look. He said to tell you that you scanned their warship, and in your arrogance, you thought you saw a beast you could cage. He looked at the confused, skeptical faces of the most powerful beings in the Concordance. You were wrong, Verl said, the words hanging in the air like a sentence. You awakened it, and now it is awake, and it is asking very politely to be left alone. He pushed the gray cube towards them. I suggest, he whispered, that you listen. The red emergency lights painted the broken bridge of the infinite clarity in the color of blood. Commander Verl lay against his console, the sharp pain in his side a constant throb. He could hear the moans of his injured crew and the hiss of air escaping somewhere deep in the ship. His world, a world of order and clean light, had been shattered into noise and darkness. Captain Minsu's voice came again from the speaker, a ghost in the ruin. Commander Verl, respond. You have 60 seconds to comply before we take further action. Further action. The words were like ice. What more could they do? Verl pushed himself up, wincing. He saw Elix helping a junior officer to his feet. Her face, lit by the red glow, was pale but set. She looked at him, and in her eyes, he saw no accusation now. Only a desperate plea for survival. We must answer, she said, her voice trembling but clear. Vorl's pride fought a last, weak battle. To surrender to this crude species? To be boarded by their soldiers? The shame of it burned hotter than his pain. But he looked at his shattered viewport, at the sparks raining from a broken console. His ship was dead in the water. The human ship was out there, intact, watching. That simple, ugly ship dot. He stumbled to the broken com station, found a manual switch that still had power. He opened the channel, his voice a ragged whisper. This is Commander Verl. He swallowed, trying to find some authority. We accept your terms. We will transmit our data. We surrender. There was a pause on the other end. Then Minsu's voice returned, unchanged. Acknowledge. Begin transmission on the frequency we are providing. Do not attempt to purge your data cores. We will know. Prepare for boarding party at your main airlock in 20 minutes. Verl, you and your senior staff will be there to receive them. Unarmed, the channel closed. On the Unyielding Spirit, the mood was not one of victory. It was one of grim necessity. They'll do it, Hana said, studying the alien ship's energy readings, which were fading to almost nothing. Their reactor is in safe shutdown. They're adrift. Good, Minsu said. He turned to his security chief, a tall, serious woman named Sumi, who had just entered the bridge. You heard. Take a team of 8. Full tactical gear. Non-lethal emphasis, but be ready for anything. Their technology is advanced. Expect traps, hidden compartments, anything. Your primary objective is to secure their data core. Secondary, bring the commander and his key officers back here. Sumi nodded. Understood, Captain. Rules of engagement? Minsu met her eyes. You are entering a potentially hostile vessel that just tried to destroy us. Your safety and the safety of the ship come first. Do what you must. 20 minutes later, a utilitarian shuttle detached from the Unyielding Spirit and crossed the short span of space to the wounded silver ship. It docked with a solid clang against the alien airlock. Inside, Verl stood with Elix and 2 other senior officers. They had no weapons. They wore their formal tunics, now torn and stained. The air was getting cold. The human airlock door opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Dashmai stepped through first. She was imposing in her black combat armor, her helmet visor transparent. Her expression was neutral, professional. Behind her, 7 other soldiers fanned out, their weapons held ready but not pointed directly at the aliens. Their movements were quick, efficient, and communicated as silent. Total control of the situation. VORL felt a new kind of humiliation. These humans were not like Captain Minsu. They were harder, their eyes scanning every shadow, every corridor. They did not look impressed or afraid of the advanced ship. They looked like they were assessing a threat. "I am Security Chief Sumi," she said, her voice filtered slightly by her helmet. "You will lead us to your primary data core. Now." Verl tried to stand straight. "This way." The walk through the infinite clarity was eerie. The graceful curves and soft lighting were now broken by flickering panels and the occasional spark. The human soldiers moved like wolves through a crystal palace, noting everything, touching nothing without reason. They reached the core chamber, a room filled with swirling light and crystalline data storage units. A human soldier, a specialist, connected a hardened device to the main interface. Lights flashed on his tablet. Data stream is clean, downloading. It's massive, but the structure is elegant. No obvious traps. Sumi nodded. "Commander Verl, you and these 2, she pointed to the other officers, will come with us. Science Officer Ilix, you will remain here with 2 of my personnel to assist with the data transfer." Ilix looked at Verl, frightened. He wanted to protest, to stay with his crew, but a look from Sumi silenced him. Her hand rested lightly on the grip of her weapon. He went quietly. Back on the unyielding spirit, Verl and his officers were taken to a secure, plain room. It was not a cell, but it was clearly designed for holding people. A soldier stood by the door. Verl sat on a bench, his head in his hands. The reality was sinking in. He was a prisoner. His ship was being ransacked. His career was over. But worse than that, a deeper, more terrifying thought was growing in his mind. He had started something, and he had no idea how to stop it. An hour passed. Then the door opened. Captain Minsu entered, alone. He had changed into a clean uniform. He looked at the defeated aliens, then pulled up a simple chair and sat facing Verl. "You scanned my ship," Minsu began, his voice quiet. "You saw our weapons, our armor. You labeled us a threat, but you never asked why we built it this way." Verl looked up, his eyes hollow. "Why? You are violent. It is in your nature." Minsu shook his head slowly. "No, we are survivors. Violence is a tool we learn to use because the universe, or creatures in it like you, kept trying to kill us. We have a saying, speak softly, but carry a big stick. You heard the stick. You never gave us a chance to speak." He leaned forward. "Your data is downloading. We will learn about your concordance, its size, its rules. But first, you are going to learn about us." Minsu pulled a small, flat data pad from his pocket. He set it on the table between them and tapped it. A holographic image sprang to life above it. It showed simple figures with spears and shields, clashing in a field. "This is Kenny," Minsu said. The image shifted, showing a diagram of encirclement and annihilation. A battle from over 2,000 years ago. We study it still, not to repeat it, to understand how to avoid ever being caught in it again. The image changed. Trenches, mud, and exploding shells. This was called the Somme, one day. Nearly 60,000 casualties before noon. The images moved faster now. Biplanes dogfighting. the night sky lit by anti-aircraft fire over a city. A blinding flash over a desert, then a cityscape seen from above, followed by a terrifying, rising mushroom cloud. Vorl watched, his horror growing. The scale of the violence was incomprehensible. It was not clean. It was messy, personal, and total. This, Minzu said, his finger resting below the image of the mushroom cloud, is what we did to ourselves. This is the lesson we learned the hard way. This is the fire we walked through. And when we finally reached the stars, we made a promise. No one would ever push us to that edge again. So we built our ships not to be pretty or efficient by your standards. We built them to be the last thing anyone like you would ever see. He turned off the datapad. The room was silent. You thought you saw a dangerous child, Minzu said, standing up. You were wrong. You saw a veteran of a war you cannot imagine. You saw scars so deep they are woven into our bones. You awakened that. And now you will carry a message back to your concordance. Vorl stared at him, finally understanding. The human was not just a soldier. He was a messenger. And the message was a warning written in the history of 1,000 battlefields. What? What is the message? Vorl whispered. Minzu walked to the door. He paused, looking back, his eyes like chips of flint. Tell them to leave us alone. Chaos ruled the bridge of the infinite clarity. The scream of metal had faded, replaced by the frantic shouts of the crew and the relentless blare of alarms. A haze of smoke hung in the air, smelling of burnt circuits and fear. Commander Vorl clung to his command rail, his knuckles white. On his main screen, damage reports flashed in urgent red symbols he rarely saw outside of training simulations. Structural integrity field is failing around the breach. An officer yelled, "We are losing atmosphere in sections 7 and 8. Primary energy conduit is severed. Weapons are offline. All of them." Vorl could not process it. They had been hit with, what? A lump of metal. A primitive, stupid lump of metal. His beautiful ship, a pinnacle of concordance harmony engineering, had been gutted by a glorified rock. He turned, searching for sense, and found Elix. Her large eyes were fixed on her science console, but they were not seeing the data. They were wide with a dawning, terrible understanding. Elix! Analysis. What was that? Some kind of plasma warhead? She blinked slowly, forcing herself to look at the readings. No, Commander. It was exactly what it appeared to be. A kinetic projectile. A mass of tungsten alloy. Our point defense lasers vaporized the front portion. Then how did it hit us? Vorl roared. The vaporization created a cloud of plasma, but the remaining mass. It just kept going. At its velocity, the plasma acted as a buffer, not a stop. The impact energy. It is not like an energy blast that disperses. It is focused. It punches. Her voice was a hollow whisper. Their weapon is simple. It is just physics. Very, very angry physics. On the main viewer, the image of the human ship, the unyielding spirit, hung silently. It looked unchanged, ugly, menacing. A few of its outer plates were blackened, but that was all. Vorl's shock began to curdle into a bitter, shaking rage. This was an outrage. An insult. He was a commander of the Concordance. He would not be humiliated by cavemen. Get me main engines. Now, bring us about. I want a firing solution with our secondary batteries. Commander, Elix pleaded, finding her voice. Our shields are optimized for energy dispersion. They are barely effective against such a kinetic impact. Our weapons require precise targeting. Their point defense system just demonstrated. I said bring us about. Vorl screamed, spittle flying. Target their engines. Disable them. We will board that ship and tear it apart with our bare hands. His crew, trained to obey, moved to follow the order. The great silver ship began a slow, wounded turn. On the unyielding Spirit, the mood was cold and focused. They're turning, Jay reported from sensors. Massive energy spike from their aft section. Main engines powering up. Smaller energy signature secondary weapons coming online. Captain Minsu watched the alien vessel move. He had hoped the single shot would be enough. A clear message, leave. But the alien commander was proud, and pride was a dangerous thing. It made you stupid. He's not running, Minsu said, more to himself than anyone. He's coming for another fight. He's angry, Hana observed from engineering. Their turn is sloppy, wobbly. That hit hurt them more than they're showing. Tactical Officer Jin spoke, his fingers hovering over his console. Their shield profile is shifting, consolidating to forward arcs. They are expecting an energy weapon response. They are not ready for another kinetic strike. Permission to target engines? Minsu thought for a moment. A disabling shot. It was the logical move. But as he watched the wounded, angry ship turn towards him, he saw something else. He saw the first move in a longer game. This was not just about one ship. This was about the message. The message had to be absolute. No, Minsu said. Not the engines. He wants a brawl. We will give him a lesson. Tactical. Activate Scorpion Sting pattern. Helm on my mark. Evasive sequence echo. He turned to Hannah. Chief, I need a sensor blind. Right between us and them. Make it big and make it hot. A fierce grin spread across Hannah's face. Reactor coolant flush. It'll be dirty and it'll waste a lot of juice, but it'll give them a screen they can't see through for 30 seconds. They'll hate it. Do it. On the infinite clarity, Verl steadied himself as his ship completed its turn. The human vessel was now centered in his targeting scopes. His secondary batteries, less powerful but faster firing, glowed with charge. Almost in range, Commander, the weapons officer said. Good. On my Verl stopped. New alarms chirped. Massive thermal bloom from the target vessel. It's a cloud of some kind. Superheated plasma and particulate. Visual and sensor occlusion complete. I cannot get a lock. On the screen, a great, billowing cloud of brilliant white and orange erupted from the side of the human ship, expanding rapidly. It was like a sudden, dirty star had been born between them. The unyielding Spirit vanished behind it. What is this trick? Verl snarled. Fire blind. Saturate the area. A few energy bolts lanced out from the Concordance ship, stabbing uselessly into the glowing cloud, dissipating without effect. Inside the cloud, on the human bridge, Minsu was calm. Helm, echo now. Port, 30 degrees down 15. Now, the unyielding Spirit, hidden by the artificial nebula, moved with a sharp, sudden thrust. It was not a graceful drift. It was a military evasion, a quick jump to a new firing position. Cloud is dissipating. Jay called out. Jin, Minsu said. The moment you have a clear shot at their command section. Not the engines. The bridge. Understood? Jin's eyes were locked on his screen. The cloud of coolant began to thin, shredding apart in the vacuum. For a second, the two ships were visible to each other again. The infinite clarity was still facing where the human ship had been. But the unyielding Spirit was no longer there. It was above and to the side, its blunt nose pointed directly at the alien ship's elegant command tower. On the infinite clarity, Elix saw it first. Commander, they've moved. Bearing high port. They are targeting evasive action. Verl screamed, but it was too late. Jin fired. Not the railgun this time. A spread of 6 missiles shot from pods on the human ship's flanks. They did not fly in a straight line. They spiraled, weaved, and jinked in random, unpredictable patterns. To the Concordance targeting computers, they were a nightmare small, cold, and dancing. Point defense lasers fired frantically, slicing 2, then 3 of the missiles into silent debris. The 4th vanished in a flash. The 5th was hit, but its burning pieces spiraled on. The 6th missile weaved through the last laser burst. It did not carry an explosive warhead. It was another kinetic kill vehicle, a smaller cousin to the railgun round. It struck the infinite clarity just below its main viewport. On the armored housing of the bridge module dot, the sound was different this time. A deeper, more final crunch, followed by a shriek of tearing supports. The entire deck pitched violently. Every screen on the bridge blew out in a shower of sparks. The lights died, replaced by the dim red glow of emergency strips. Gravity flickered, failed for a terrifying second, then returned weakly. Verl was thrown against a console, pain flaring in his side. He gasped, pushing himself up in the eerie red darkness. He could hear crying, moans of pain. He looked around. His bridge was broken. His ship was dying around him. The main viewer was dead. But a small backup comm screen flickered to life. It showed only the blackness of space and the gray, angular shape of the human ship hanging there, silent. Watching that then, a new channel opened. Audio only. Captain Min-Su's voice filled the ruined bridge, calm and clear. Commander Verl, your ship is disabled. Your weapons are gone. You have one chance. Surrender your vessel. Transmit all your data cores to us. Prepare to be boarded by our security team. The voice was not angry. It was not gloating. It was simply stating facts. And in its utter calm, Verl finally felt the last of his pride drain away, replaced by a cold, sickening horror. This was not a fight he had lost. It was a fight he had never understood. He had woken the beast, and now it had its paw on his chest, and it was not even breathing hard. The silence on the bridge of the infinite clarity was thick and heavy. Commander Verl stared at the human captain's face on the screen. Those calm, measuring eyes held no fear, only a kind of cold patience. Vorl's own heart was beating too fast. He could feel Elix's gaze burning into his back, full of silent warning. He had to regain control. This was a first contact, not a challenge. He was the representative of a civilization that spanned stars. This human Min-Su was from a species that had barely left its own planet. Verl drew himself up, making his body look taller. Captain Min-Su, he said, his voice struggling to find its usual smooth tone. You misunderstand. The Galactic Concordance brings order. We have seen species like yours before, full of passion and conflict. Your technology proves this. It is built for war. On the screen, Min-Su did not move. It is built for survival, he said. Survival often requires peace, Verl replied, feeling more sure of himself. Your current path is dangerous, to yourself and to others. Therefore, by the authority of the Concordance, I must declare your species a preemptive threat. He let the words hang in the air. On his own bridge, his crew shifted nervously. A preemptive threat was a serious label. It was almost never used. Your vessel will be impounded, Verl continued. You will return to your homeworld. Your solar system will be placed under quarantine. A Concordance fleet will arrive to sanitize your military capabilities. Then, and only then, can talks about your future begin. He expected panic. He expected pleading, or at least angry shouting. He saw none of that. Min-Su's head tilted just a fraction. Sanitize? He repeated, the words sounding flat and ugly. "Remove the danger," Verl clarified, waving a hand. "Dismantle these primitive weapons. Guide you towards harmonious technology. It is for the greater good." On the bridge of the unyielding spirit, the crew listened. Chief Engineer Hana muttered a single low word in Korean that needed no translation. Her fingers, which had been hovering over her console, now settled onto it, ready. Tactical Officer Jin, without looking up, spoke softly to his captain. "Their main weapon is at 90% charge." A show of force. Min-soo gave a small, almost invisible nod. He looked back at Verl. "Commander Verl, you entered our home. You scanned our ship without permission. Now you tell us we are a threat because of what you saw? You tell us we will be disarmed and locked in a cage? For our own good?" "For the good of all," Verl insisted, his arrogance returning. This human was simply in denial. "You cannot be trusted with such tools." A faint, hard smile touched Min-soo's lips. It did not reach his eyes. "You talk of trust, but you are the one pointing a weapon at us. You talk of peace, but your first action was to invade. You see our history of war, and you think it makes us weak. You think it is a sickness to be cured." He paused, and his voice dropped, becoming quieter, yet clearer. "You are wrong. That history is a lesson written in blood and fire. We learned it so that no one else could ever do to us what we did to ourselves. That lesson is the only reason we are still here." Verl felt a flush of irritation. This was philosophy, not reality. "Your lessons are written in tools of violence. The galaxy does not work this way. Stand down, Captain. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. This is your only warning." He gestured sharply to his weapons officer. On the main viewer, the human crew saw the alien ship's forward arrays glow a bright, menacing blue. It was a beautiful light, clean and sharp. "They're going to fire," Jin said, his voice still calm. "A warning shot, most likely. Aiming for our forward section, away from the engines. Trying to scare us." Min-soo took a slow breath. He looked around his bridge. At Hana, whose jaw was set tight. At Jay at sensors, who was breathing fast, but holding his post. At Jin, a rock of stillness. He saw no fear, only a waiting tension. Evasive action? Jin asked. "No," Min-soo said. "Hold position. Let them fire." Verl, watching the human ship do nothing, felt a surge of triumph. They were frozen. They were finally understanding their place. "Fire," he ordered. A brilliant lance of blue energy shot from the infinite clarity. It crossed the space between the ships in a heartbeat, aimed to skim past the human ship's bow, a blinding display of power. On the unyielding spirit, the alarm for incoming fire blared. Hannah's hands became a blur. She did not try to raise a shield. Instead, she sent a series of commands to the hull. The outer layer of the unyielding spirit's forward section was not smooth. Up close, it was made of thousands of interlocking plates. As the energy bolt neared, 100 of these plates directly in its path exploded outward. They did not shatter randomly. They broke apart into a dense, swirling cloud of jagged fragments in specially engineered dust. The blue energy bolt hit the cloud. Instantly, the fragments superheated, vaporizing into a plasma. The dust absorbed and scattered the beam's energy. The beautiful, coherent lance of light broke apart, flaring into a harmless, glowing fog that dissipated against the main hull, leaving only a smudge of blackened metal. The bridge of the infinite clarity was utterly silent. The weapons officer stared at his screen in disbelief. Impact mitigated. Target integrity unchanged. Minimal damage. Elix was frantically analyzing the data. They They sacrificed part of their own hull. They turned solid matter into a disposable shield. The energy dispersion pattern. It's not a defense technology. It's a tactical resource expenditure. Verl could not understand it. They blew up their own ship to stop a warning shot? No, Elix whispered, her voice filled with dread. They used a piece of their ship as ammunition. On the human ship, Minsu looked at the view screen, now cleared of the glowing fog. Damage report. Hannah checked her readings. Forward sacrificial layer, section alpha, depleted. No breach. Hull integrity at 98%. They wasted a lot of energy on pretty light. She almost smiled. Minsu turned to Vol's stunned face on the com screen. Your warning has been received, Commander, he said, his voice like iron. Now, here is mine. You have fired upon a United Nations vessel. Leave this system immediately. Transmit your full database on the Galactic Concordance to us. Then you may go. Vol's shock turned to pure, hot anger. This primitive was dismissing him? After that barbaric trick? You dare? You think that crude stunt changes anything? Your ship is still surrounded. Your technology is still a grotesque joke. Power down now, or our next shot will not be a warning. Minsu held his gaze for a long moment. Then he gave a small, final nod. So be it. He looked away from Verl to his own crew. His voice was clear and calm on his own bridge. All hands. Condition read. Weapons Officer Jin, you are authorized for a measured response. Target their primary weapon array. Let's show them what a grotesque joke can do. Jin's hands moved. Aye, Captain. Firing solution locked. Railgun 1, single round, firing. There was no grand sound. Only a deep, metallic thump that vibrated through the deck of the unyielding spirit. From its blunt forward section, a dark shape, no larger than a ground vehicle, sped into the void. It was a solid tungsten rod, simple and unadorned. It did not glow. It did not sparkle. It was just a piece of metal, moving faster than anything the Infinite Clarity had ever seen outside of a comet. On the alien ship, the point defense systems saw it immediately. They categorized it as kinetic debris and reacted automatically. Brilliant lasers lanced out, striking the projectile head-on. The front of the tungsten rod vaporized instantly into a cloud of superheated plasma. The Concordance crew felt a moment of relief. Their systems had worked, but the physics did not stop. The rest of the rod, now a white-hot, molten mass shaped by the blast, kept coming. The cloud of plasma around it actually helped it, confusing the targeting sensors. A millisecond later, the 5-ton remains of the projectile, carrying all the immense speed it had started with, struck the Infinite Clarity. It did not explode. It simply punched. It hit the glowing blue weapon array and tore through it like a fist through paper, then kept going into the upper hull before its energy was spent. The sound inside the alien ship was a deafening scream of tearing metal. Lights flickered. Alarms Verl had never heard before began to shriek. The beautiful, clean bridge was filled with the smell of ozone and fear. Primary weapon destroyed. Hull breach on decks 4 through 6. Containment fields holding, barely. An officer yelled. Verl was thrown to the floor. He pulled himself up, his fine tunic torn. He looked at the main screen, which was now flashing with damage reports. He looked at Elix, whose face was white with horror. Then he looked back at the com screen, which was still linked. Captain Minsu was watching him. There was no triumph in the human's eyes. Only a cold, distant certainty. The conversation, Minsu said slowly, is over. The great ship hung in the silent dark, a sliver of polished silver against the profound black. It was called the Infinite Clarity, a vessel of the Galactic Concordance, and its purpose was to seek out new life. To its crew, the mission was routine, almost boring. They had seen 100 primitive species peck at rocks on their homeworlds. Commander Verl stood on the command platform, his long fingers resting on the smooth rail. He watched the main screen, where a gas giant with spectacular rings filled the view. Saturn, the locals called it. A pretty enough spectacle, he thought, but just another planet. Final sweep of the outer system. "Commander," said his science officer, a careful female named Elix, her large. Dark eyes were fixed on her own data stream. "Sensor echoes are negligible. The dominant species on the third planet shows early orbital capability. Simple chemical rockets. Their energy signatures are chaotic. Fission-based, mostly." Verl let out a soft sigh, a whisper of air through his nasal slits. Fission. How crude. They still poison their own world to reach their own moon. A classic pre-contact civilization. Aggressive, limited, messy. He had seen the type before. They either collapsed under their own violence or were gently, firmly guided into the peaceful folds of the Concordance. "There is an anomaly," Elix said, her voice tightening just a fraction. "A lone vessel, orbiting the sixth moon, the gas giant. Its signature is odd." "Odd how?" "A piece of debris? No, it is powered. It is moving. But its energy profile makes no sense." Verl felt a flicker of irritation. "Show me." The screen shifted. The beautiful rings vanished, replaced by a sharp, computer-enhanced image. A ship. It was angular, all hard edges and flat planes, colored a dull gray that seemed to eat the light. It had no graceful curves, no artistic flourishes. It looked like a weapon that had simply decided to fly. "It is ugly," Verl stated. "Scan it, full spectrum. I want to know what we are dealing with before we make first contact protocol." On the unyielding Spirit, the alert was a soft, persistent chime, not a blaring siren. Captain Min-Su looked up from his report screen. He was a man with a calm face and watchful eyes, the kind of calm that comes from seeing many bad situations. "Report," he said, his voice even got at the sensor station. A young officer named Jay spoke up. "Unknown contact, bearing 327 by 014. Range 500,000 kilometers. It's scanning us, sir. Actively. Deep pulse scan. Way past anything friendly." A low whistle came from the engineering station. Chief Engineer Hana shook her head, her fingers already dancing across her console. "They're not knocking on the door, Captain. They're taking the door apart to see what the hinges are made of. Power levels on that scan are intense. Medical grade, but for a corpse." Min-Su leaned forward. "Hail them. Standard first contact frequencies. Polite but firm. Ask them to identify themselves and state their intentions." As the comm officer sent the message, Min-Su turned to his tactical officer. "Jin, status." Jin was a quiet man who spoke mostly with his hands on his console. "All systems nominal, Captain. Point defense grids are live. Railgun capacitors at standby. Missile pods are cold." He said it the way another man might report the weather. "They have a clear weapons lock on us. Their main energy weapon is powering up." "Understood. Hold position. Hold fire." Back on the infinite clarity, the scan data was pouring in, a waterfall of numbers and schematics that began to paint a picture of the gray ship. And the picture was making no sense. Elix's voice, usually so measured, began to rise in confusion. "Commander, the readings are impossible. The primary propulsion is a basic magnetic confinement fusion drive. But primitive. But it's coupled with a gravity manipulation field we cannot source. The field isn't for propulsion. It's internal. It's creating artificial gravity by brute force. Verl frowned. So they spin their ship like a primitive centrifuge? No, that's just it. They don't spin it. They bend gravity inside it. The power drain should be catastrophic, but their reactor output is fluctuating wildly, like a heartbeat. She called up another schematic. The hull. It's a layered alloy of titanium, steel, and carbon composites. But the molecular bonding is reactive. It's not meant to be passive. It's designed to absorb and redirect energy by shattering in controlled ways. Controlled shattering? That is not a defense. That is suicide. Perhaps, Ilix whispered. Then her eyes went wide. Secondary scan complete. The mass distribution? Commander, over 60% of the ship's mass is concentrated in its forward third. It is not just a ship. Structurally, it is a giant reinforced spear. A new window opened on the main screen. It was a linguistic analysis of the radio traffic inside the human ship. The computer had been parsing their internal communications. What are they saying? Verl demanded. Ilix read the translation, her skin paling. They are not just talking. They are citing historical battles. Ancient ones. A location called Kenny, another called Zama, a more recent one, Midway. The references are tactical. They are using them as shorthand for maneuvering patterns. Suddenly, the comms officer spoke. Commander, we are receiving a hail from the primitive vessel. Verl straightened his tunic. Put it on screen. Let us see the face of this. Contradiction. The main viewer shimmered, and the face of Captain Min-Su appeared. He looked directly forward, his expression neutral, but his eyes sharp and intelligent. Unknown vessel. This is Captain Min-Su of the United Nations starship Unyielding Spirit. You are conducting an intrusive scan within sovereign human space. Identify yourselves and cease your scan immediately. Verl was taken aback by the directness. There was no fear, no wonder. Just a clear, firm demand. He recovered, putting on his most diplomatic tone. Captain, we are the Galactic Concordance vessel, Infinite Clarity. Our scans are standard procedure for evaluating new species. There is no need for alarm. Your technology is fascinating, quite unique. On the Unyielding Spirit, Min-Su's face didn't change. Your standard procedure is a violation. You will stop now. In the background, Verl could see the human bridge. It was dimly lit, all functional screens and physical controls. He saw a female officer, at one station Hana shaking her head, pointing at a readout. He saw the tactical officer Jin, watching his own screens like a hawk. There was a tension in them, but it was the tension of a coiled spring, not of panic. Vol's diplomatic mask slipped. This primitive was giving him orders? Captain, you must understand. The galaxy is a peaceful place, your ship. Its design principles are alarming. They suggest a violent, aggressive nature. The concordance must ensure stability. Min-Su's gaze hardened. You scanned my ship. What did you see? The question was simple, but it carried a weight that silenced Verl for a moment. Ilix, off-screen, was frantically gesturing. The final pieces of scan data were coming in. The power core wasn't just fluctuating. It had massive, shielded bypasses leading directly to the spear-like forward section. The spear wasn't just structural. It housed a magnetic acceleration chamber of monstrous size. The entire vessel was a single, colossal gun. Verl looked from his terrified science officer back to the stern, unyielding face on the screen. For the first time, he felt a cold trickle of doubt. They had peeled back the layers of this strange, ugly ship, expecting to find clumsy, dangerous junk. Instead, they had found a clockwork of terrifying simplicity and brutal purpose. They hadn't found a child playing with a sharp rock. They had found a predator, sleeping in the dark, whose teeth were older than their own civilization. He had no words. The silence-stretched Min Su watched the alien commander's hesitation. He saw the flicker in those large, strange eyes. He knew that look. It was the look of someone who had just realized they had made a very, very big mistake. "You saw our history, didn't you?" Min Su said, his voice now quiet, almost soft. "It's written in the shape of our hull, in the way we power our lights. You looked right at it, and you thought you saw something you could control." He leaned forward slightly until his face filled the alien screen. "You were wrong.